self-reliance, Recording-Emerson, Nata Kasivara Extra. Man is in his own star, in the soul that can render an honest and a perfect man, commands all life, all influence, all fate. Nothing to him falls early or too late. Our acts, our angels are, or good or ill, our fatal shadows that walk by us still. It looks to moment and flinches on his man's fortune. Cast a bantling on the rocks, suckle him with the she-wolf's teeth. Wintered with the hawk and fox, power and speed, behands and feet. I read the other day some verses written by an eminent painter, which were originally and not conventional. The soul always hears an admonition in such lines that the subject speak what it may. The sentiment that instill is of more value than any thought they may contain. To believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. That is genius. Speak your Latin conviction, and it shall be the universal sense. For the inmost in due time becomes the outmost, and our first thought is surrendered back to us by the trumpet of the last judgment. Familiar as the voice of the mind is to each, the highest merit was ascribed to Moses, Plato, and Milton, is that they sat at notebooks and traditions, and spoke not what men, but what they thought. A man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within, more than the lustre of the firmament of birds and says, yet he dismisses without notice his thought, because it is his. In every work of genius we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienate majesty. Great works of art have no more affecting lesson for us than this. It teaches to abide by our spontaneous impression with good humor and flexibility than most when the whole cry of voices is on the other side. Else, tomorrow, a stranger will say with mastering good sense precisely what we have thought and felt all the time, and we should be forced to take with shame our own opinion from another. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion, that through the wide universe is full of good, no kernel or nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil restored on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he has tried. Not for nothing one face, one character, one fact makes much impression on him, and another none. This sculpture in the memory is not without pre-established harmony. The eye was placed where one ray shall fall, that it might testify of that particular ray. We both having expressed ourselves in our share of that divine idea which each of us represents, it may be safely trusted as proportionate and of good issues, so it be faithfully imparted. But God will not have this work made manifest by cowards. A man is relieved and gay when he has put his heart into his work and done his best. But what he has said or done otherwise shall give him no peace. It is a deliverance which does not deliver. In the attempt his genius deserts him. No muse befriends, no invention, no hope. Trust yourself. Every heart vibrates to the iron string. Accept the place the divine providence has found for you, the society of your contemporaries, the connection of events. Great men have always done so, and confine themselves childlike to the genius of their age, betraying their perception that the absolutely trustworthy was sitting at their heart, working through their hands, predominating in all their being. And we are now men, and must accept in hardest mind the same transcendent destiny, and not minors in events in a protected corner, not cowards fleeing before a revolution, but guides, redeemers, and benefactors, obeying the almighty effort and advancing on chaos in the dark. What pretty oracle nature yields us on this text, in the face and behavior of children, babies, and even brutes. That divided and rebel mind, the distrust of a sentiment because our arithmetics that computed and strength and means opposed to our purpose, these have not. Their mind being whole, and I is as yet unconquered. And when we look in their faces, where this concert is concerted, emphasis conforms to nobody, all conform to it, so that one baby commonly makes 4 or 5 out of the adults who prattle and play to it. So God has armed youth and puberty and manhood, no less with its own piquancy and charm, and made it inevitable and gracious, and it claims not to be put by, if it will stand by itself. Do not think the youth has no force, because he cannot speak to you and me. Hark! In the next door, his voice is sufficiently clear and emphatic. It seems he knows how to speak to his contemporaries. Bashful or bold, then he will know how to make a senior very unnecessary. The nonchalant of boys who are short of a dinner, and would disdain as much as a lord to do or say ought to conciliate one, is the healthy attitude of human nature. A boy is in the parlor what the pit is in the playhouse, independent, irresponsible, looking out from his corner on such people and facts as pass by. He tries and sentences them on their merits in the swift, summary way of boys as good, bad, interesting, silly, eloquent, troublesome. He keeps himself never about consequences, about interest. He gives an independent, genius verdict. You must court him. He does not court you, but the man is, at a word, clapped into jail by his consciousness. As soon as he has one act or spoken with eclat, he is a committed person, watched by the sympathy or the hatred of hundreds, whose affection must now enter into his account. There's no dance for this, that he could pass again into his neutrality. Who can this avoid all pledge, and having observe again from the sin, unaffected, unbiased, unbiblical, unfrigid innocence, must always be formidable. He would utter opinions on all passing affairs, which, being seen to be not private but necessary, would sink like dirt into the ear of man and put them in fear. These are the voices which we hear in solitude, but they grow faint and inaudible as we enter into the world. Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which the members agree for the better securing of his bread to each shareholder, to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. The virtue in most request is formality. Self-reliance is its aversion. It loves not realities and creators, but names and customs. Whoso would be the man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immoral pearls must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Absorb you to yourself, and you shall have the savage of the world. I remember an answer which, when quite young, I was prompted to make a valid adviser, who was wont to importune me with the dear old doctrines of the church. On my saying, what have I to do with the sacredness of traditions if I live wholly from within? My friend suggested, but these impulses may be from below, not from above. I replied, they did not seem to me to be such, but if I am the devil's child, I will live then from the devil. No law can be sacred to me, but that of my nature. Good and bad are but names very readily transformable to that or this. The only right is what is after my constitution, the only wrong what is against it. A man is to carry himself in the presence of all oppositions, as if everything were tutelary and ephemeral but he. I'm ashamed to think how easily we capitulate to batch and names, to large societies and great institutions. Every decent and well-spoken individual affects and sways me more than is right. I ought to go outright and brutal and speak the rude truth in all ways. If malice and vanity were the code of philanthropy, should that pass? If an anger beguiles assumes that bountiful cost of abolition, and comes to me with his last name from Barbadoes, why should I not say to him, go love the infant, love the woodcopper, the good-natured and modest half-negress, and never vanish your heart on charitable ambition with this incredible tenderness for Blackford, 1,000 miles off. Lead love fair is spite at time. At home, rough and graceless would be such greeting, but truth is handsomer than the affectation of love. Your goodness must have some edge to it, else it is none. The doctrine of hatred must be preached as the counteraction of the doctrine of love, when that pures and wanes. As son, father, and mother, and wife, and brother, when my genius calls me, I will write on the letters of the doorpost, "Win." I hope it is somewhat better than "Win" at last, but we cannot spend the day in explanation, except made not to show cause why I seek or why I exclude company. Then again, do not tell me, as a good man did today, of my obligation to put all poor men in good situations. Are they my poor? I tell thee, thou foolish philanthropist, that I grudge the dollar, the dime, the cent I give to such men as do not belong to me, to whom I do not belong. There's a class of persons to whom by all spiritual affinity I am bought and sold. For them I will go to prison if need be. But your miscellaneous popular charities, the education at college of fools, the buildings of meeting houses to the van end to which many now stand, alms to salt, and a thousand for relief societies, though I confess with shame I sometimes succumb and give the dollar. It is a wicked dollar, which by and by I shall have the manhood to withhold. Virtues are, in the popular estimate, rather than exception than a rule. There is the man and his virtue. Men do what is called a good action, as some pieces of courage or charity, much as they would pay a fine in expiation of daily non-appearance on parade. Their works are done as an apology or extenuations of their living in the world, as invalids and the innocent pay a high board. Their virtues are penances. I do not wish to expiate, but to live. My life is for itself and not for a spectacle. I much prefer that it should be of a lower strength, so that it be genius and equal, than that it should be glittering and unsteady. I wish it to be sound and sweet, and not to need diet and bleeding. I ask primary evidence that you are a man, and refuse this appeal from the man to his actions. I know that for myself it makes no difference whether I do or forbear those actions which are reckoned excellent. I cannot consent to pay for a privilege where I have intrinsic right. Few and mean as my gifts may be, I actually am, and do not need for me my own assurance or the assurance of my fellows, any secondary testimony. What I must to do is all that concerns me, not what the people think. This rule, equally odious in actual and in intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is the harder because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. The objects to conforming to usage that have become dead to you is, that it scatters your force. It loses your time and blurs the impression of your character. If you maintain a dead church, contribute to a dead Bible society, vote with a great party either for the government or against it, spread your table like base housekeepers. Under all these screens, I have difficulty to detect the precise man you are. And of course, so much force is withdrawn from your proper life. But do your work, and I should know you. Do your work, and you should reinforce yourself. A man must consider what a blind man's birth is the scheme of conformity. If I know your sex, I anticipate your argument. I hear a preacher announce for his text and topics the expedience of one of the institutions of his church. Do I not know beforehand that not possibly can he say a new and spontaneous word? Do I not know that with all these ostentations of examining the grounds of the institution, he will do no such thing? Do I not know that he is pleased to himself not to look but at one side, the permanent side, not as a man, but as a parish minister? He shall retain attorney, and these heirs of the bench are the emptiest affections. Well, most men have bound their eyes with one or another handkerchief, and attach themselves to some of these communities of opinion. This conformity makes them not false in a few particulars, authors of a few lines, but false in all particulars. Their every truth is not quite true. Their two is not the real two, their four not the real four. So that every word they say trigrants us, and we know not where to begin to set them right. Meantime, nature is not slow to equip us in the prison uniform of the party to which we adhere. We come to wear one cut of face and figure, and acquire by degrees the gentlest asinine expression. There is a mortifying experience in particular which does not fail to rig itself also in the general history. I mean the foolish face of phrase, the first smile which we put on in company where we do not feel at ease, in answer to conversation which does not interest us. The muscles not spontaneous move, but moved by a low usprint waftness grow tight about the outline of the face with the most disagreeable sensation. For non-conformity, the road whips you with its displeasure, and therefore a man must know how to estimate a sour face. The bystanders look askance on his in the public street or in a friend's parlor. If this conversation had its origin in contempt and resistance like his own, he might well go home with a sad countenance. But the sour face of the multitude, like their sweet faces, have no deep cause, but are put on and off as the wind blows and a newspaper directs. Yet is the discontent of the multitude more formidable than that of the Senate and the college. It is easy enough for a firman who knows the road to brook the rage of the cultivated classes. Their rage is decorous and prudent, for they are timid as being very vulnerable themselves. But when to their feminine rage and indignation of the people is added, when the ignorant and the poor are aroused, when the unintelligent brute force that lies at the bottom of society is made to grow and mount, it needs the habit of magnanimity and religion to treat it godlike as a trifle of no concern. The other terror that scares us from self-trust is our consistency. A reference for our past acts or word, because the eyes of others have no other data for computing our orbit than our past acts, and we are those to disappoint them. But why should you keep your head over your shoulder? Why drag about this corpse of your memory that you contradicts somewhat you have stated in this or that public place? Suppose you should contradict yourself. What then? It seems to be a rule of wisdom never to rely on your memory alone, scarcely even in acts of pure memory, but to bring the past for judgment into a thousand eyes present and live every in a new day. In your metaphysics you have denied personality to the deity, yet when the devout motions of the soul come, yield to them heart and life, so they should clothe God with shape and color. Leave your theory as Jovis his coat in the hand of the harlot, and flee. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little might, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. with consistency, a graceful has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with his shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now, in Howard, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks, in Howard again. Theory contradicts everything you said today. So you should be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Father Groves was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be understood. I suppose no man can violate his nature. All the cells of his will are rounded in by the law of his being, as the inequalities of ants and chameleon are significant in the curves of the shapes. Nor does it matter how you judge and try him. A character is like an artistic or Alexander's stanza. Read it forward, backward, or across, it still spells the same thing. In this pleasant country wood life which God allows me, then I record day by day my honest thought without prospects or retrospect, and I cannot doubt it will be found symmetrical, though I mean at night and see at night. My book should smell of pines and resound with the hum of incense. The shadow over my shoulder should interweave that thrive, or stole he carries in his bill into my web also. We pass for what we are. Character teaches above our wills. Men imagine that they communicate their virtue or verse only by overt actions, and do not see that virtue or vice and it every moment. There would be an agreement in whatever variety of actions, so they be each honest and natural in their hour. For of one will, the action will be a menace. However unlike they seem, these varieties are lost sight of at a little distance, at a little height of thought. One tendency unifies them all. The voyage of the batship is a zigzag line of 100 tacks. See the lights from a sufficient distance, and it strengthens itself to the average tendency. Your genius action will explain itself and will explain your other genius action. Your conformity explains nothing excellently, and what you have already done sanely will justify you now. Greatness appeals to the future. If I can be firm enough today to do right, and scorn eyes, I must have done so much right before as to define me now. Be it how it will, do right now. Always scorn appearance, and you always may. The force of characters is cumulative. All the foregone days of virtue work their wealth into this, their health into this. What makes the majesty of the heroes of the sentence and the field, which so fills the imagination? The consciousness of a trend of great days and victory behind. They show an united light on the advancing actor. He is attended as by a visible score of angels. That is it which throws thunder into Catherine Bowles, and dignity into Washington's port, and America into Adam's eyes. Honor is vulnerable to us because it is no ephemeris It is always ancient virtue. We worship it today because it is not of today. We love it and play it homage because it is not a trap for our love and homage, but is self-dependent, self-derived, and therefore of an old, immaculate pedigree, even if shown in a young person. I hope in these days we have heard less of conformity and consistency, that the words be gasted, gasted and ridiculous henceforth, instead of the gone for dinner. Let us hear a whistle from the Spartan five. Let us never bow and apologize more. A great man is coming to eat at my house. I do not wish to please him. I wish that he should wish to please me. I will stand here for humanity, and though I will make it kind, I will make it true. Let us avoid and reprimand the smooth mediocrity and squalid contentment of the time, and hurl in face of custom and tread in office the facts which is the upshot of all history, that there is a great responsible thinker and actor working wherever a man works, that the true man belongs to no other time or place, but is the center of things. Where he is, there's nature, the mystery, and all men and all events. Ordinarily, everybody in society reminds us of someone else or of some other person. Character, reality, reminds it of nothing else. It takes place of the whole creation. The man must be so much that he must make all circumstances indifferent. Every true man is cause, a country, and an age requires infinite spaces in numbers and time fully to accomplish his design, and posterity seem to follow his steps as a train of clients. A man Caesar is born, and 4 ages after we have a Roman Empire. Christ is born, and millions of minds go grow and cleave to his genius, that he is confounded with virtue and the possible of man. An institution is the lengthened shadow of one man, as monasticisms of the Hermit Antony, the Reformation of Luther, Alcoholism of Fox, Methodism of Wesley, abolition of Clarkson, Scipio Mountain called the height of Rome, and all history resolves itself very easily into the biography of a few stout and earnest persons. Let a man then know his worth and keep things under his feet, that he not peep or steal or skunk up and down with the air of a charity boy, a bastard, or an interloper in the world which exists for him. But the man in the street, finding no worth in himself which corresponds to the force which built a tower or sculpture, a marble god, feels poor when he looks on these. To him, a palace, a statue, or a costly book have an alien and forbidden air, much like a gay equipage, and seems to say like that, "Who are you, sir?" Yet they all are his. Suitors for his notice, petitioners to his faculties that they will come out and take possession. The picture waits for my verdict. It is mine to commend me, but I am to settle its claims to praise. That popular fable of the soul who was picked up dead drunk in the street, carried to the Duke's house, washed and dressed, and laid in the Duke's bed, and on his waking, treated with all obsequious ceremony like the Duke, and assured that he had been insane, owed its popularity to the fact that it symbolized so well the state of man, who is in the world a sort of salt, but now and then wakes up, exercises his reason, and finds himself a true prince. Our reading is medicated and psychophantic. In history, our imagination plays a spot. Kingdom and lordship, power and estate are a joltier vocabulary than Private John and Edward in a small house and common day's work. But the themes of life are the same to both. The sum total of both is the same. Why all this deference to Alfred and Scanderbeg and Gustavus? Suppose they were virtuous. Did they wear out virtue? As great a stake depends on your private act today as follow their public and renowned steps. When private men shall act with original views, the luxury will be transferred from the actions of kings to those of gentlemen. The world has been instructed by its kings, who have so magnetized the eyes of nations. It has been told by this causal symbol the mutual reference that is due from man to man, the joyful loyalty with which men have everything suffered the king, the noble, or the great proprietor to walk among them by a law of his own, make his own scale of men and things, and reverse theirs, pay for benefits not with money but with honor, and represent the law in his person, was the hieroglyphic by which they obscurely signifies their consciousness of their own right and commonness, the right of every man. The magnetism which all origin action exerts explained when we inquire the reason of self-trust. Who is the trustee? What is the original self on which a universal reliance may be grounded? What is the nature and power of that science-baffling star, without parallax, without calculable elements, which shoots a ray of beauty even into trivial and impure action, if the least mark of independence appear? The inquiry leads us to that source, at once the influence of genius, of virtues, and of love, and of life, which we call spontaneity or instinct. We denote this primary wisdom as institution, whilst all latter teachings are tuitions in that deep force, the last facts behind which analysis cannot go. All things find their common origin. For the sense of being which encompasses our rise, we know not how, and the soul is not diverse from things, from space, from life, from time, from man, but one with them, and proceeds obviously from the same sources whence their lives and being also proceed. We first share the life by which things exist, and afterwards see them as appearance in nature, and forgot that we have shared their cause. Here is the fountain of action and of thought. Here are the lawns of that inspiration which gives man wisdom, and which cannot be denied without impetus and anthems. We live in the lamp of immersed intelligence, which makes us receivers of a truth and organ of its activity. When we discern justice, when we discern truth, we do nothing of ourselves, but allow the passage to explain. If we ask whence this comes, if we seek to pry into the soul that causes all philosophy is at fault, its presence or its absence is all we can affirm. Every man discriminates between the voluntary acts of his mind and his involuntary perceptions, and knows that to his involuntary perceptions a perfect faith is due. He may err in the expression of them, but he knows that these things are so, like day and night, not to be disputed. My willful actions and acquisitions are but revolving. The idlest reverie, the fainting native motion, command my security and respect. Doubtless, people contract this as readily the statement of perception as of opinions, or rather much more readily, for they do not distinguish between perceptions and notion. They fancy that I choose to see this or that thing, but perception is not whimsical, but fatal. If I see a trait, my children will see it after me, and in course of time, all mankind, although it may chance that no one has seen it before me, for my perception of it is as much effect as the sun. The relations of the soul to the divine spirit are so pure that it is profane to seek to interpose powers. It must be that when God's speaking, he should communicate not one thing, but all things, shall fill the world with his voice, to scatter forth light, nature, time, soul, from the center of the present thought, and new data, and new create the world, new create the whole. Whenever the mind is simple and receives a divine wisdom, all things pass away. Means teachers, texts, temples fall. It lives now and absorbs past and future into the present hour. All things are made sacred by relations to it, one as much as another. All things are dissolved to their center by their cause, and in a universal miracle, pretty and particular miracles disappear. If therefore a man claims to know and speak of God, and carries you backward to the phraseology of some old modern nation in another country, in another world, believe him not. Is the acre better than the ark which is its fullness and completion? Is the parent better than the child into whom he has cast his weeping being? Whence then these virtues of the past? These centuries are conspirators against the sanity and authority of soul. Time and space are but sociological colors which the eyes makes. But the soul is light where it is day, where it was is night, and history is an importance and an injury if it be anything more than a cheerful apologue or parable of my being and becoming. Man is timid and apologetic. He is no longer outright. He dares not say, I think I am, but quote some saint or sage. He is ashamed before the blade of grace or the blowing rose. These roses on my window make no reference to former roses or to better ones. They are far what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. He is simply the rose It is perfect. It is perfect in every moment of its existence. Before labor has burst, its whole life acts. In a full brown flower there's no more. In a leafless root there's no less. Its nature is satisfied, and it satisfies nature in all moments alike. But man postpones or remembers. He does not live in the present, but with reverted eye laments the past, or he dotes of the riches that surround him, stands on tiptoe to foresee the future. He cannot be happy and strong until he too lives with nature and the present above all. This should be plain enough. This should be plain enough. Yet seeing what's wrong, intellect dare not yet hear God himself, unless he speak the phraseologies of I know not what David or Jeremy or Paul. We shall not always set so great a price on a few texts, on a few lives. We are like children who repeat by rote of sentences of grandaments and tutors, and as they grow older, of the men of talent and character, they chance to see, painfully recollecting the exact words they spoke. Afterwards, when they came into the point of view which those had who uttered these sayings, they understand them and are willing to let the words go. For at any time they can use words as good when occasion comes. If we live truly, we shall see truly. It is as easy for the strong man to be strong as it is for the weak to be weak. When we have new perception, we shall gladly disburden the memory of its hoarded treasures as old rubbish. When a man lives with God, his voice shall be as sweet as the murmur of the brook and the rustle of the corn. And now at last the highest truth on this subject remains unsaid, probably cannot be said, for all that we say is too far off, remembering of the institution that taught by what I can now nearest approach to say is this: when good is near you, when you have life in yourself, it is not by any known or accustomed way. You should not discern the footprints of any other. You should not see the face of man. You should not hear any name. The way, the thought, the God should be wholly strange and new. It should exclude example and experience, to take the way from man, not to man. All persons that ever existed are its forgotten ministers. Fear and hope are alike benefit. Beneath it, there's somewhat low even in hope. In the hour of vision, there's nothing that can be called truth and right, and calms itself with knowing that all things go well. Vast spaces of nature, the Atlantic Ocean, the South Sea, long interval of time, years, centuries, are of no account. This which I think and fear underlie every former state of life and circumstances, as it is underlying my present and what is called life and what is called death. Life only avails, not the having life, not the having lived. Power sees in the instant of repose. It receives in the moment of transition from the past to a new state, in the shooting of the gulf, in the darting to an end. This one fact the world hates, and the soul becomes, for that forever degrades the past, turns all riches to poverty, reputation to a shame, confounds the sand with the rock, shoves Jesus and Judas equally aside. Why then do we pride of self-reliance? Inasmuch as the soul is present, there will be power, not confident, but agent. To talk of reliance is a poor external way of speaking. Speak rather of that which relies, because it works and is. Who has more obedience than I masters mine, and I master me? Though he should not raise his finger, round him I must revolve by the gravitation of spirits. We fancy it rhetorical. We fancied it rhetoric when we speak of eminent virtue. We do not yet see that virtue as height and that of man or a company of man, plastic and permeable to principles, by the law of nature, must overpower and right all cities, nations, kings, rich men, poets, who are not. This is the ultimate fact which we so quickly reach on this, as one every topic, the resolution of all into the ever-blessed one. Self-existence is the attitude of the supreme cause, and it constitutes the measure of good by the degree in which it enters into all lower forms. All things real are so by so much virtue as they contain. Commerce, husbandry, hunting, whaling, word, eloquence, personal weight are somewhat and engage my respects as examples of its presence and impure action. I see the same workings in nature for conversation and growth. For is in nature the essence measure of right. Nature suffers nothing to remain in her kingdoms which cannot help itself. The genesis and maturations of a planet is poised in orbit. The bended tree recovering itself from the strong wind. The vital resources of every animal and vegetables are demonstrations of the self-sufficiency and therefore self-reliant soul. Thus all concentrate. That is not rove, that is sit at home with the cause, that is stun and astonish the intruding rabble of men and books and institutions by a simple declaration of the divine fact. That by the inventors take the shoes from off their feet, for God is here within, that our simplicity judgment and our docility to our own law demonstrate the poverty of nature and fortune besides our native riches. But now we are among man does not stand in awe of man, nor in his genius admonished to stay at home, to put itself in communication with the internal ocean, but it goes abroad to beg a cup of water of the urns of other men. We must go alone. I like the silent church before the service begins, better than any preaching. How far off, how cool, how cast the persons look. Begirt each one with the precinct or sanctuary. So let us always sit. Why should we assume the faults of our friend, or wife, or father, or child, because they sit around our hearth, or are said to have the same blood? All men have my blood, and I have all men's. Not for that will I adopt their petulance or folly, even to the extent of being ashamed of it. But your isolation must not be mechanical, but spiritual. That is, must be elevation. At times, the whole world seems to be in conspiracies to importune you with necessity, import you with emphatic tribals. Friends silent, friends clinging, friends, client, child sickness, fear, want, charity, all knock at once at the closest door, and say, "Come on unto us," but keep thee stay, come not into their confusion, the power man possesses to annoy me. I give them by a weak curiosity. No man can come near me but through my act. What we love, that we have. But by desire, we will raise ourselves up first. If we cannot at once rise to the sanctities of obedience and faith, let us at least resist our temptations. Let us enter into the state of work and we grow and widen courage and constancy in our Saxon breaths. This is to be done in our smooth time, by speaking the truth. Check this lying hospitality and lying affection. Live no longer till the expectation of these deceives and deceiving people, with whom we conserve. Say to them, O father, O mother, O wife, O brother, O friend, I have lived with you after appearances hitherto. Henceforward I am the truth, be known unto you, that henceforward I obey no law, less than the internal law. I will have no conveyance but proximities. I should endeavor to nourish my parents, to support my family, to be the chaste husband of one wife. But these relations I must fill after a new and unprecedented way. I appear from your customs. I must be myself. I cannot break myself any longer for you, or you, if you can love me for what I am. We shall be the happier. If I cannot, I will still seek to deserve that you should. I will not hide my taste or aversions. I will so trust that what is deep is holy, that I will do strongly before the sun and moon whatever inly rejoins me, and the heart appoints. If you are noble, I will love you. If you are not, I will not hurt you and myself by hypocritical attentions. If you are true, but not in the same truth with me, cleave to your accompaniments. I will seek my own. I do this not foolishly, but humbly and truly. It is like your interest and mine, and all men's, however long we have dwelt in lives, to live in truth. Does it sound harsh today? We must in love what is dictated by your nature as well as mine, and if we follow the truth, it will bring us out safe at last. But so, you may give these friends pain. Yes, but I cannot sell my liberty and my power to save their sensibility. Besides, all persons have their moments of reason. When they look out into the region of absolute truth, then will they justify me and do the same thing. The populace think that your rejection of popular standards is a rejection of all standards and mere nominences, and the broad sensualist will use the name of philosophy to veil his crimes, but the law of consciousness abides. These are two conventionals, in one or the other of which we must be striven. You may fulfill your round of duties by clearing yourself in the direct or in the relaxed way. Consider whether you have satisfied your relations to father, mother, cousin, neighbor, town, cat, and dog. Whether any of these can outright you, but I may also neglect this reflex standard and absolve me to myself. I have my own starring claims in perfect circle. It denies the name of duty to many offices that are called duties. But if I can discharge its debts, it enables me to dispense with the popular code. If anyone imagines that this law is lax, that he keep its commandment one day. And truly it demands something godlike in him who has cast off the common motives of humanity, humanity, and has ventured to trust himself for a taskmaster. High be his heart, faithful his will, clear his sight, that he may in good earnest be doctrine, society, low to himself, that a simple purpose may be to him as well as iron necessity is to others. If any man consider the present aspects of what is called by distinction society, he will see the need of these ethnics. The sinews and heart of man seems to be drawn out, and we have become timorous, despondent, whippers. We are afraid of truth, afraid of fortune, afraid of death, and afraid of each other. Our age yields no great and perfect persons. We want men and women who shall renovate life in our social state. But we see that most natures are insolvent, cannot satisfy their own wants, have an ambition out of all proportion to their practical force, and do learn and bad day and night continually. Our housekeeping is mendicant, our arts, our occupations, our marriage, our religion, we have not chosen, but society have chosen for us. We are parlor soldiers. We shine the rush battle of fate where strength is born. If our young men miscarry in their first enterprises, they lose all heart. If the young merchant fails, men say he is ruined. If the finance genius studies at one of our colleges and is not installed in an office within 1 year afterwards in the cities or suburbs of Boston or New York, he seems to his friend and to himself that he is right in being disheartened and in complaining the rest of his life. A sturdy lad from New Hampshire or Vermont, who in turn ties all the professions, who teams it, forms it, paddles, keeps a school, preaches, adds a newspaper, goes to Congress, buys the townships, and so forth. It success for years, and always, like the cat, falls on his feet. Is worth a husband, is worth 100 of these cities' dolls. He walks abreast with his days, and feels no shame in not studying a profession, for he does not postpone his life, but lives already. He has not one chance, but 100 chances. That is solid open the resources of man, and tell men they are not learning willows, but can and must detach themselves, that with the exercise of self-trust, new power shall appear, that a man is the Word made flesh, born to shed healing to the nations, that he should be ashamed of our passions, and that the moment he acts from himself, tossing aloft the books, idolatries, and customs out of the window, repeatedly, no more, but think and reverse him, and that teacher shall restore the life of man to splendor and make his name dear to all history. It is easy to see that the greatest self-reliance must work a resolution in all the offices and relations of men, in their religion, in their education, in their pursuits, their modes of living, their association, in their property, in their speculative views. In what prayers do men allow themselves? That which we call a holy office is not so much as brave and manly. Prayers look abroad and ask for some foreign addition to come through some foreign virtue, and loses itself in endless names of nature and supernatural and mediatorial and miraculous. Prayers replace a particular commodity. Anything less than all good is vicious. Prayer is the contemplation of the facts of life from the highest point of view. It is the soliloquy. It is the soliloquies of a beholden and jubilant soul. It is the spirit of God pronouncing His works good. But prayer as a means to effect a private end is meanness and theft and thief. It supposes dualism and not unity in nature and consciousness. As soon as the man is at one with God, he will not beg. He will then see prayer in all action. The prayer of the farmer kneeling in his field to weed it, the prayer of the rower kneeling with the stroke of his oar, are true prayers heard throughout nature, for chief ends, caratage in flanches bountifully, when admonished to inquire the mind of the God, Odate replies, His hidden meaning lies in our endeavors. Our valors are our best gods. Another sort of false players at our regret. Discontent is the want of self-reliance. It is infirmity of will, regret, calamities. If you can thereby help the sufferer, if not, attend your own work, and already the evil begins to be repaired. Our sympathy is just as space. We come to them who weep foolishly and sit down and cry for a company instead of imparting to them truth and wealth and health in rough electric shocks, putting them once more in communication with their own reason. The secret of fortune is joy in our hands. We'll come evermore to God's, and man is the self-helping man. For him all doors are flung wide, in all tongues free, all honor crowned, all eyes follow with desire. Our love goes out to him and embrace him, because he did not need it. Wait solicitously and apologetically, caress and celebrate him because he held on his way and scorned our disprobation. The gods loved him because men hate him. To the persevering mortal, said Zoroaster, the blessed immortals are swift. As men's prayers are a disease of the will, so are their creeds a disease of the intellect. They say with those foolish Israelites, that not God speak to us, lest we die. Speak thou, speak any man with us, and we will obey. Everywhere I am hindered of meeting God in my brother, because he has shut his own temple doors, and recites fable merely of his brothers, or his brother's God. Every new mind is a new classification. If it prove a mind of uncommon activity and power, a a lover, a haunting, abandoned, euphoria imposes its classification on other men and those. A new system in proportion to the depth of the thought, and so to the number of the objects it touches and brings within reach of the pupil is his complacence. But chiefly is this apparent increase in choices, which are also classifications of some power mind acting on the elemental thought of duty and man's relations to the highest, such as Calvinism, Quakerism, Swedenborgism. The Pills takes the same delight in subordinating everything to the new terminology as a girl who has just learned botany and seen a new earth and new seasons thereby. It will happen for a time that the pupil will find his intellectual power has grown by the study of his master's mind. But in all unbalanced mind, the classification is idealized, passes for the end, and not for a speedily exhaustible means, so that the worlds of the system blend to their eye in a remote horizon with the worlds of the universe. The luminaries of heaven seems to them haunt on the arch their master built. They cannot imagine how you aliens have any right to see, how you can see. It must be somehow that you steal the light from us. They do not yet perceive that light, unsystematic, indomitable, will break into any cabin, even into theirs, that they're shrub a well and calling their own. If they're honest and do well, presently their neat new pinfold will be too straight and low, will crack, will learn, will rot and vanish, and in more light, all young, joyful, million color will beam over the universe as one the first morning. It is for what of self-cultures that the superstitions of traveling, whose idols are Italy, England, Egypt, retains its fascination for all educated Americans. They who made England, Italy, or Greece venerable in the imagination did so by sticking fast where they were like an axis of the earth. In many hours, we feel that duty is our place. The soul is no traveler. The wise man stays at home, and when his necessities, his duties, on any occasion call him from his house or into foreign lands, he is at home still, and shall make men sensible by the expression of his countenance that he goes the missionary of wisdom and virtues, and visits cities and men like a sovereignty and not like an interloper or a valet. I have no cherished objections to the circumnavigation of the globe for the purpose of art, of study, and benevolence, so that the man is first domesticated, or does not go abroad with the hopes of finding someone greater than he knows. He who travels to be amused, or to get someone which he does not carry, travels away from him, and grows old even in dawn among old things. In Thebes, in Palmyra, he will and might have become old and dilapidated as they. He carries ruins to ruins. Traveling is a fool's paradise. Our first journeys discover to us the indifference of places. At home, I dream that at Naples, at Rome, I can be intoxicated with beauty and lose my sadness. I pack my trunk, embrace my friends, embark on the sea, and at last wake up in Naples, and there beside me is the stern fact, the set self, unrelenting, identical that I fled from. I seek the Vatican and the palaces. I affect to be intoxicated with sights and suggestions, but I'm not intoxicated. My giant goes with me whenever I go. But the rage of traveling is the symptom of a deeper unsoundness affecting the whole intellectual action. The intellect is vagabond, and our system of education fosters breathlessness. Our mind travel when our bodies are forced to stay at home. We imitate, and what is imitation but the traveling of the mind? Our houses are built with foreign taste. Our shops are furnished with foreign ornaments. Our opinions, our tastes, our faculties lean and follow the past and the distant. The soul created the arts wherever they have flourished. It was in his own mind that the artist sought his motto. It was an application of his own, brought to the thing to be done and the conditions to be observed. And why need we copy why need we copy the Doric or the Gothic motto? Beauty, convenience, grandeur of thought, and one expression are as near to us as to any, and if the American artist will study with hope and love the precise things to be done by him, considering the climate, the soil, the length of the day, the wants of people, the habit and form of the government, he will create a house in which all these will find themselves fitted, and taste and sentiment will be satisfied also. Insist on yourself, never imitate. Your own gift you can present everywhere moment with the cumulative forces of a whole life's cultivation, but of the adopted talent of another you have only an extemporaneous half possession, that which each can do best. None but the maker can teach him. No man yet knows what it is, nor can till that people has exhibited. Where is the master who could have told Shakespeare? Where is the master who could have instructed Franklin, or Washington, or Bacon, or Newton? Every great man is a unique. The scriptonism of Scripto is precisely that part he cannot borrow. Shakespeare will never be made by the stone of Shakespeare. Do that which is assigned you, and you cannot hope too much or dare too much. There is at this moment for you an utterance brave and grand as that of the colossal chisels of Phidias, or sword of the Egyptians, or the pen of Moses, or Danton, but indifferent from all these. Not possibly will the soul all rich, all eloquent, with thousand cloven tongue, designed to repeat itself. But if you can hear what these patriarchs say, surely you can reply to them in the same pitch of voice,
For the year and the time are two organs of one nature, abide in the simple and noble regions of the life, obey the heart, and thou shalt reproduce the forward again. As our religion, our education, our outlook abroad, so does our spirit of society. All men plumb themselves on the improvement of society, and no man improves. Society never advances. It receives as fast on one side as it gains on the other. It undergoes continual change. It is barbarous, it is civilized, it is Christianized, it is rich, it is scientific, but this change is not an amelioration. For everything that is given, something is taken. Society acquires new arts and loses old instincts. What a contrast between the world class, reading, writing, thinking, American, with a watch, a pencil, a bill of exchange in his pocket, and the naked New Zealander, whose property is a club, a spear, a mat, and an undivided quantity of a shed to sleep under. But compare the health of the two men, and you shall see that the white man has lost his aboriginal strength. If the travelers tell us truly, strike the savage with a broad axe, and in a day or two the flesh should unite and heal as if you strung the billow into soft pitch, and the same blow should send the white to his grave. The civilized man has built a couch, but has lost the use of his feet. He is supported, unconscious, but lacks so much support of vessel. He has a fine Geneva watch, but he fails of the skills to tell the hour by the sun. A Greenwich logical eminence he has, and so being short of the information when he wants it. The man in the street doesn't know a star in the sky. The solstice he does not observe. The equinox he knows as little, and the whole bright calendar of the year as without a doubt in his mind. His notebooks empire his memory. His libraries overload his week. The insurance office increased the number of accidents, and it may be a question whether machinery does not encumber, whether we have not lost by refinement some energy, by personality entrenched in establishments and forms, some vigorous of wild virtue, for every Stoic was a Stoic, but in Christianity, where is the Christian? Where is the Christian? There's no more deviation in the moral standard than in the standard of height or boat. No greater men are now than everywhere. A singular equality may be observed between the great men of the first and of the last ages. Nor can all the science, art, religion, and philosophy of the 19th century avail to educate greater men than Pulitler's heroes. 3 or 4 and 20 centuries ago, not in time as the race progressive. For Phocion, Socrates, Anaxagoras, Diogenes are great men, but they leave no class. He who is really of their class will not be called by their name, but will be his own man and in his turn, the founder of sect. The arts and inventions of each period are only its costume, and do not invigorate man. The heart of the improved machinery may compensate its good. Hansen and Bering accomplished so much in their fishing boats as to astonish Parry and Franklin, whose equipment exhausted the resources of science and art. Galileo, with an opera glass, discovered a more splendid series of celestial phenomena than anyone since. Columbus found a new world in an undecked boat. It is curious to see the periodical disuse and corruption of means and machinery, which were introduced without laundations a few years or centuries before. The great genius returned to his century. We recount the improvement of the art of war among the trumpets of science, and yet Napoleon conquered Europe by the bivouac, which consists of falling back on naked valor, and disincubrating it of all else. The emperor held it impossible to make a perfect army, says there's cases, without abolishing our arms, magazines, commissaries, and carriage until in imitation of a wrong custom the soldier should receive his supply of corn, granted in his handmill, and bake his bread himself. Society is a wave. The wave moves onward, but the water of which it is composed does not. The same particle does not rise from the valley to the ridge. Its unity is only phenomenal. The persons who make up the nations today, next year die, and their experience with them. A solid reliance on property, including the reliance on government which protects it, is the one of self-reliance. Men have looked away from themselves and at things so on, that they have come to esteem the religious, learned, and civil institution as gods of property, and they deprecate assaults on these because they feel them to be assaults on property. They measure their esteem of each other by what each has, and not by what each is. But a cultivated man becomes ashamed of his property out of new respect for this nature. Especially he hates what he has. If he sees that it is accidental, came to him by inheritance, or gift or crime, then he feels that it is not having, it is not belonging to him, have no root in him, and merely lies there because no revolutions or no robot takes it away. But that which a man is thus always by necessity acquire, and what the man acquires is living property, which does not wait the back of rulers, or moats, or revolutions, or fire, or storm, or bankruptcies, but perpetually renews itself wherever the man breathes. These laws, or potions of life, said the Caliphate Elite, is seeking after thee. Therefore be at rest from seeking after it. Our dependencies on these foreign goods leads us to our slavish respect for numbers. The political parties meet in numerous conventions, the greater the conquest, and with each new uproar of announcements, the delegations from Texas, the Democrats from New Hampshire, the which all means the young patriot feels himself stronger than before by a new thousands of eyes in arms. In like manner, the reformers assault conventions and vote and resolve in multitude, not so, O friends. Well, the God died to enter and inhabit you, but by a matter precisely the reserve. It is only as a man put off all foreign support and stand alone that I see him to be strong and to prevail. He is weaker by any recruit to his banner. It's not a man better than a town. It's not a man better than a town. It's not enough man. And in the endless mutation, though only firm, Colin must presently appear the uploader of all that surrounds thee. He who knows that power is inborn, that he is weak because he has looked for good out of him and elsewhere, and so perceiving, throws himself unhesitatingly on his thought, instantly rights himself, stands in the erect position, commands his limbs, works miracles, just as a man who stands on his feet is stronger than a man who stands on his head. So use all that is called fortune. Most men gamble with her, and gain all and lose all, as her wheel rolls. But do those thieves as unlawful these winnings, and deal with cause and effect. The chancellors of God. In a real word and a quiet, and no has chance the wheel of chance, and so sits hereafter out of fear from her rotations, a political victory, a rise of rents, the discovery of your sick, or the return of your absent friend, or some other favorable event. Raise your spirits, and you think good days are preparing for you. Do not believe it. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the trophy of principle.